Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 107. So we're going to give you an insight of what we've got up ahead for this week, and also compare analysis from last week as well. So starting off with gold. So what we were looking at from last week was a potential sell-off. We were looking for price to potentially target, the uptrend here. So yeah, I just wanted to discuss some zones right now. So what we can see here, this is pretty much a very strong sell-off. This is where price, from last week we were expecting a potential turnover from here. So with this sell-off that we've got already, we're pretty much just waiting to see if we can now tackle the 1880 highs. So what I'm thinking is, I'm reviewing the 1760 level and zone, because what we spoke about this is that if price broke this, we could be heading downwards. So I have got another thought about this zone, seeing as how price is rapidly pushing lower. And essentially, if we do break this low, I will be cautious to see if we could get an up rebound, because the reason why I'm thinking this is because of how strong this is moving. This is completely dropped really low, so there is a possibility that the price may come down just a bit lower, and it could make sense that price will dip into the 1760 level and then could give us that reaction where we're looking for that buying opportunity. So I'm going to give 1760 another kind of like a pre-warning sign. So from here we could expect price to potentially rally into the 1880, or if it's really bearish, we might just have to take a risk on this. We may see price continue to fail and drop into 1720. So this is kind of like my level of kind of concern, is pretty much when we get to this range. In this area you could potentially look at taking a sell and buy, and then just seeing whichever one wins. But really we want to stay above 1720 as our maximum for any buying opportunity. So I guess this range is just going to be very important, but if we can stay above here, or anything above 1720, really we're looking for buys. But if we start to progress lower, we can start to potentially think about selling here in the anticipation of going lower to 1720. But I don't think this has a good I don't think this scenario will effectively work. I think these two scenarios will kind of play. So we're looking for price to eventually reach 1880 to take out this high and essentially go higher. So we'll see what happens next week. So again, this scenario here is just if we stay above this zone here. So pretty much price can rally up at any point. And then the second scenario is if we break the 1760 low, we could anticipate price to push a little bit higher. So yeah, we'll see what's to come from gold next week. So moving into EURJPY. So I was actually expecting price to make a bit more of an advance move, a bit more of a recovery to the upside before falling off. So yeah, we can see price has completely dropped off right now. So yeah, so now that we've fulfilled 1.12, I'm looking for now the next opportunity. And yeah, essentially I feel like the next opportunity for us is now pretty much waiting for price to push towards the upside. Not necessarily sure how much it will go for this week, but essentially what we could expect is pretty much the opportunity to recover some of this move to the downside. As we know, price doesn't always trend forever. It has to kind of come and correct and pull back to some degree. So what we could find is that this low will hold and then it will continue to push up higher, or we'll get a bit of a push to the downside and then it will start to turn over to the upside. So for this, I'm actually going to be a little less aggressive on this, or try to anticipate. So what I really want to see first is just that willingness for price to start to recover, and then we could expect some choppy price action here. So we're not going to be expecting price to rapidly shoot up. We're just going to probably expect price to move in a very choppy manner, and I guess another range bound market will start to form. Seeing as we have fulfilled 1.12, we'll see where we can kind of move to next. So I think in the next week or so, or maybe mid-February, we'll start to see a bit of a bigger picture, what's forming. But for now, I think it's probably best to kind of stay out of this one, seeing as the market is pretty much just dropping. You never really know if price is going to continue dropping or if it's going to drop just a little and then reverse. So I'd rather just wait for something else to happen. So that's kind of my thought processes with EU. Moving on to NZD USD. So for this, we had two scenarios. We were looking at price to potentially recover from 0.67 and enter the top side trend line for a sell, or the second scenario is we'll get a break lower of that 6.7 and get a retest and drop low. So this one was a very small retest, and if you got into this one, then great. For me personally, I was actually expecting a bit more of a pullback to some degree. I was hoping the price could do that, but it never really kind of gave us that kind of clarity that I personally wanted to take. So I'm not really worried about that. So what we're trying to look at now is to see where we can go through next. And I'm thinking that price may want to continue pushing lower, but I feel like there's probably just one more move to the downside. But if you really want to get involved with that, then yeah, fair enough. But what I'm trying to potentially look at is as the main move is pretty much this recovery move to the upside that's caused this whole drop. So potentially price to push up just a little higher. So as we can see, price has just been dropping and dropping for pretty much like mid-January to the end of January. So it's only fair to kind of expect that maybe price is eventually going to turn around at some point. So now that doesn't necessarily mean you should just start buying now, because I'm not oblivious to the fact that price is just dropping. So we could potentially look at those continuated sells, just trying to potentially milk as much as possible from this current downtrend. But effectively, there is going to be a turnover at some point within the market. So hopefully we can start to get involved with that and take on this new short-term trend. So I haven't really got any exact levels where we could go for now, because we're pretty much in a free fall right now. So I'm just waiting for price to kind of show us if it wants to turn over, and then try look for those those buying opportunities. So I probably will be thinking mid-February with that opportunity. So looking into AUDUSD, so for this, we're pretty much looking at a similar kind of opportunity with EU and gold, EU, and NZD USD. Pretty much that we're waiting for price to eventually turn over to the upside. So touching on from last week's analysis, we were looking at price. One option was respecting the 0.715, in which we would have hoped for price to push into 73 and higher. Or the second scenario is that price would blow through it, and then the option would be to wait for that retest and then to eventually see it drop off. The FOMC pretty much carried this to the downside, so I was actually expecting pretty much a bit more of a pullback, but this was a very rapid move. We don't really typically see this move happen. So these are just kind of like one-off trades. So if you feel like you've missed these moves, don't feel too don't feel too annoyed about yourself or beat yourself up about it, because these drops don't really tend to happen as often and frequently. But yeah, all we have to do now is just, I guess, prepare for the next move. So that's what we can look for. So what I'm looking at now is potentially just to see if we can wait for this turnover in the market. I'm not entirely too sure when that's going to be, but essentially what we have to do is just wait for price to exhaust to the downside, and then pretty much just wait for it to turn over. So it could look like something like this. So, you know, price is here, maybe it starts to drop lower, continues to do that, and then it breaks up high like this, and then does that. So essentially we see the change of trend here, and then hopefully we can, you know, potentially get involved onto that move to the upside. So as we can see, 0.7 has been fulfilled, so it kind of makes sense that it's just probably going to now continue exhaust into the downside, wait for price to do its thing, wait for a change in structure, so, you know, change in the trend, and then we can start to anticipate those buys and see where we can go through here, because I'm thinking price could potentially take out 73. I'm not entirely too sure, but we're going to have to kind of wait for this, because this could potentially be the move that makes it go even lower, or it could be the move that continues to push up higher. So I'm not entirely too sure for now, but, you know, coming through with the data that we have this week, you know, it's fair to say that we're expecting price to finish moving lower to the downside, and then eventually moving its way over to shift into a new trend for the next month. So yeah, so we also have NFP as well, so that could be another key sign for change as well. So yeah, let's move on to now USDJPY. So yeah, this one has been interesting. USD has been giving us some nice opportunities already in January. So yeah, so what we was looking at for this was a potential turnover in the market. Was expecting price to, you know, tackle the highs into 117. So you can see we're already on the way now. So pretty much right now we just have to, you know, if you didn't get in at the bottom, we can just now wait for pretty much essentially like a retest as price comes to dip just a little lower, and then we can hopefully resume this trend that's forming. So this is what I'm looking into now. So essentially waiting for price to potentially dip just a little lower, possibly into 114.5, and then hopefully it could potentially land into 117. So yeah, so that's my outlook for UJ. If we start to break lower now than this zone here, so about 113, I will be looking for sells into the market. But yeah, we'll see what we can, if price does come here, we'll have to kind of do like a little update video. But for this week, as it stands, I just really want to target, see if we can get into 117, and hopefully we can find this pullback into the upside. So that's what I got for UJ. Let's take a look into CADJPY. So yeah, for this, so yeah, what we were looking at for this was pretty much we're looking for sells ultimately. I'm not entirely too sure when this selling off is going to happen, so we just have to stay patient within this. So yeah, so what I'm looking at is just kind of like this choppy price action right here. We're balancing between 91. You know, there is a potential opportunity that price could break its way to the upside and then start to drop off. So you could look at sells like so. You could catch the very top, or you could wait for the retest. But yeah, the other scenario that we've got pretty much is if price wants to break above this all, we'll be literally in a completely new bias. So pretty much that's all I'm kind of looking for now, is just sells. As long as we can stay below this high, so 92, I'll be looking for so if we stay below 92, we should be looking for sells. If we go above 92, I'm looking for buys. So that's pretty much kind of the bias. So really, I'm wanting for price to go all the way down into 88 and lower. So we'll see where we can go through with CADJPY. So expecting good things with this pair. Yeah, long term, you know, I'm thinking lower. I'm liking this price action right now. Drop off. Yeah, we'll see what can come through with CADJPY. So let's take a look into EJ. EJ has been quite good actually. It's been sticking to our biases. But yeah, essentially what we've been looking at is for price to potentially make a way to the upside. I was actually looking for price to do that this week, but really it was just a jumbled up price action really. If we take a look at how price has just been going from the 21st, just pretty much been rolling, just been quite choppy to be honest. So what I'm thinking for this week is pretty much a similar notion again. Probably going to be looking for some intentional buys, but the main scenario that we're looking at again from what we spoke about last week was that sell-off. And this is where I think that long-term opportunity, you know, if you were going to pick which kind of trade to kind of like hold on, or like long-term buys, I guess, is pretty much that sell. So as we are getting further and further away from 131.5, you know, I think that's a good level to assume bullish intention for long term. But as of right now, we're below it, so we can start to think at some short-term buys, but then potentially, you know, the longer term sell. So like 130 would be probably like a good level. But that's where we're kind of looking to target for those buys. And then in terms of sells, we're looking to take out 127, potentially even lower 126. So yeah, ideally we've got a long way to go. But yeah, excited for EJ for this pair. So we'll see where we can go through with that one. AUDJPY. Yeah, this one has just been pretty strange to me. I've just been waiting for pretty much this turnover, but it's not really been happening. I've had some concerns about the 80 level, so I actually kind of looked at, well, I'm looking at this now in a new level. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these lines and this one. But essentially, I'm looking at a 79 with a bit more detail now. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this zone. So essentially, what I'm thinking with this is that price is pretty much selling off, and ultimately I'm still waiting for price to turn over. So what I think could happen is that 80 barrier that we had here, it could probably pierce it and then take us into it, and then eventually reverse to the upside. So we could potentially start to use this channel here as a potential guideline, in a way that we could you know, get involved. You know, if we start to see this break of this upper level, we could start to see you know, we could start to consider taking on some buys. So I'm thinking about taking some buys maybe more confidently if we get above here. But if we start to get into this 80 level, you know, I'm going to be potentially looking out for those sells. So you know, maybe it is that we look for those short-term sells, and then, you know, we just hold on to them and just move our stop loss accordingly. But if we start to see any sign of potential turnover, you know, above the 79 level, we, you know, for me, it's still going to be valid. So taking a buy trade for me, you know, I think it could still be a worthy trade to take, even if the idea doesn't necessarily play out. You know, at the end of the day, it's about probabilities and not necessarily about being right or wrong. So if this does actually manage to roll over to the upside, then yeah, maybe this is going to continue to the upside into 84.5 or even 85. But I'll be most likely more confident if price breaks above here. So it's up to you where you want to get involved with the market. I'm going to try my best to see if we can get this turnover, just to anticipate it, or just to even just be aware, you know, just be alarmed, or just keep a lookout for 80. But yeah, I will be mindful of also taking sells as well. So, you know, if we do get a sell, and if we can break this 79 level, this is really that turnover point in the market. So we could expect some nice sells moving on from here. So yeah, we'll see what can happen from here. yeah, and we'll just go forward with that one. Okay, so moving on to USDCHF. So yeah, this one has been an absolute rocket. Yeah, this one really surprised me how far it has quickly rallied to the upside. I didn't really necessarily think it was going to go to 93 that quick, but really shot up to 200 pips. So yeah, I think I was explaining in my last video that we could expect 93 to potentially hit. The 91 zone did actually did respect in the end, so that's a good sign. So moving forward from this, what can we potentially look for? What could we anticipate? So I'm actually looking into now. Where are we looking? We're looking into 94. Let me move this a little higher. So pretty much the 94 zone. So I'm going to keep this level here. So basically just drag that zone across. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this week with USDCHF. So yeah, let's take a look into this a little deeply and a little bit further to our next move. So what we're looking at now is we can already start to see some kind of midway rejections coming into play. So what is this kind of telling me? Well, this is a potential sell-off that's going to happen, and you can really kind of get involved with that if you wanted to. But mainly my kind of bias is really just to anticipate price to continue its way, and hopefully we can get ourselves back into 94, or squeeze ourselves into there somehow. But maybe we can anticipate price to dip a little lower, so that's where we could even look at some counter trend moves, squeeze some pips to the downside. Again, not necessarily forcing it, but that's what we could look at. And yeah, getting into those buying opportunities to the upside. So the next thing is which I highly doubt will happen, but again, always best to keep scenarios in your back pocket, is to see if price does go and break the 91 level. I will be looking for sales. So that's pretty much what I've got left for USDCHF. So let's take a look now into USDCAD. Yeah, this one, what I've been looking into, yeah, pretty much was waiting for a stronger pullback, but I can see that obviously prices pretty much just been rolling through towards the upside. So that's very good to see. Let me just take a look at, okay, so it says 24th. So yeah, so it was roughly around here. So 24th. So yeah, so what I was expecting was probably just a little bit of a pullback from here, maybe a deep one, but as you can see, price rallied up, and this was that pullback. So if you got in here, that would have been great, but obviously the FOMC news was pretty much on the line here, so they quickly spiked up to the upside. So that's great. We can see that happening. So yeah, I got a bunch of alerts all over this place, so hopefully that doesn't distract you. But yeah, moving forward from this, what can we kind of go from on, or what can we go from this pair in particular? So what I am essentially anticipating is pretty much a similar notion with USDCHF, which is essentially price pulling back, and then we could expect price to pretty much reverse towards the upside. So I'm looking for price to, we've got this range of 129.5, but I'm looking looking forward to seeing how it reacts at once basically wherever price starts to turn over to the downside. What I'm going to be looking at is if price is how it reacts when it makes that newer high, if that makes sense. So if this is the turnover point, for example, at 128, maybe as price starts to break lower, and then if it starts to if this then does recover and then turns towards back up to the upside, breaking 1.28 above, this is where we're going to review the bias, because this has a possibility of doing a run through of of this zone, 129.5, edging into possibly 1.3, or we could potentially reverse and rally all the way back down into 124. So we've got some interesting decisions to make once we get into this, if this scenario does play out. So for now, I am quite bullish on this still, and again, I'm only going to be bullish on this until we get a break of 1.245. So unfortunately, if price does come all this way, we're going to have to just miss out on this sell. But that doesn't necessarily mean you know, you guys have to wait on taking sells. You know, you can anticipate sells and hold it into this retracement here. But if this scenario doesn't happen, then hopefully, you know, your short positions will be covered and it starts to, you know, rally lower, and I guess, you know, you could pretty much start to potentially just, you know, as a backup, just to think about taking some sells for the short term, and hoping that, you know, we don't get that buy opportunity. So it's pretty much how you want to play it. For me, I will be looking at taking some sells if I can, but what I will be doing is I'll just be a bit aware of where price wants to, well, if price does start to give some sort of bullish intention into the market, and yeah, just kind of stay alert from that. So that's pretty much all I got for this week. Hopefully you guys did make some profits or saw some clarity with my analysis. Hopefully it did help. But yeah, if you did get any value from this video, feel free to let us know if it did help you. But yeah, furthermore, make sure you give this video a like, and yeah, if you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed. And thank you very much for your time, for your listening, and we'll see you all in our next week's video.